Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast. We're building something special at Black Women Stitch, and we can't do it without your support. Through our year-round campaign, Stitch Better Have My Money, we've already raised about $43,000, and we're pushing to hit $55,000. This isn't just about keeping the podcast going. It's about building capacity, paying our team, expanding our programming, and making sure we have the support we need to keep this work strong, sustainable, and rooted in Black liberation. If you believe in what we're doing, if Stitch Please has ever made you laugh, think, or feel seen, now's the time to show some love. Tap the link and donate today. Every dollar stitches us closer to the future we're building together. And thank you. Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolfork. I'm a fourth-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together. Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast. And as I say every week, this is a very special episode because this episode we are talking with none other than Delita Martin, a printmaker, a creative genius, someone who was raised in art school. And she is going to talk with us about the connections between printmaking and stitching. I met Delita a few weeks back at a Bell Hooks symposium held at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. She was on the keynote panel talking about art and the ways that Bell Hooks had us think about art as a way to express freedom in an unfree society. And there was something so powerful about a Black feminist space with artists who amplified, elevated, and affirmed Black women in their art making, as well as in the subject matter for their art. And Delita was dropping some gems that day, and I was like, rush to the microphone so I could ask a question about stitching and layers versus, all of this. And so I was like, other people need to hear this answer from her. And so I invited her to come on the show, and she is here with us today. Thank you so much, Delita Martin, and welcome to the Stitch Please podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to be in conversation with you again. And I'm just so honored to be here and share my work with you.
Just so grateful. Thank you. What is your sewing story? This is the first question that we ask here on the Stitch Please podcast, because you have said that you were raised in art school.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So it took me a lifetime of growing up and becoming an adult to understand that. But I grew up among quilt makers, on both sides, my father's side and my mother's side, just creatives everywhere. There were writers, there were painters, there were woodworkers, just in a creative environment. So I grew up with that. But I think one of the most impactful moments in my life was, I lived with my grandmother and my mother, and my grandmother would quilt every night and I would help her. So I was in charge of cutting out her patterns for her. And one particular pattern that always stuck with me that I love making the quilt, she called it her Rocky Mountain quilt. These little squares that I would cut out, and I would fold them into triangles, and she would stagger them.
Yes.
She would make these little squares and we would put them together. So I would cut out the fabric, fold the triangle, and she taught me to do what some people consider a whip stitch.
Yes.
And just a light tacking to hold it in place so she could come through and do a more secure stitch. And I think what was so impactful about that was the fabrics that she used were old clothes that had been given to her, pieces of fabric that had been given to her, and even upholstery from furniture that, had been taken apart. But there was always a story attached to the fabric. There was always a story, an origin story about the person or the place or the thing that, brought us to that moment. And so for me, in my work, I realized that, wait a minute, I am attaching, significance,
Yes.
people, places, and things. I've associated those with objects, and with
Yes.
fabrics and with patterns and textures and all of those things. So what I realized was that not only was she teaching me this oral tradition,
Right.
teaching me sewing, but she was teaching me a visual language.
Yes. And the visual language and the way that you were encouraged to see a variety of visual languages. So as you sat at your grandmother's knee and were folding, I think sometimes people call them a shark's tooth. Some people call them, it's not a flying geese. It looks like that when it's folded, but there is that. What is that called? I'm gonna have to look that up because now it is bothering me that I can't remember it. Because if you use a rectangle and fold it, it makes a sharp point that some people call a shark's tooth. But the standard one, prairie points. That's what they call them things. Prairie points. At this point, we could just call them, Delita triangles for all I know. I mean,
Right?
why is it prairie points? But okay, anyway, prairie points. I like your grandmother's Rocky Mountain better. But yeah, this idea that you could be involved in learning to manipulate textiles and learning to get textiles from a variety of places. I wonder if you can connect that to the way that your work draws inspiration from a variety of places. You have a lot of sources in terms of the form of your work that you say draw from lots of different places. But in terms of who it's dedicated to, it's dedicated, it seems, to Black women. And can you talk a little bit about what that means to be encouraged from an early age to not be afraid or to be invited to represent your community through the reflection of art?
Oh, yes. So for me, growing up that way, it was very nurturing. Like I said, I did not understand the importance of it until I became an adult. But from a little girl on, I was introduced as an artist. And so for me, I've always considered myself an artist. There was never a plan B. So it was just this natural evolution, and it just made sense to bring textiles into the work because I'm essentially treating paper the way that many people treat fabric.
Yes.
And I combine the two. I will put, paper, I will stitch it onto fabric and vice versa. I will take paper and create a fabric pattern. I will manipulate it, to where it feels like fabric. And so it was just this natural evolution. And when I think about becoming a printmaker, I think about how things are set up in our lives and look back over it and you're like, wait a minute, I was on a path and I didn't know I was on a path. And so when you think about the similarities between printmaking and fabric making, I mean, fabric patterns are made from printmaking. From process, from relief process. I think about in Indian culture, the blocks that they use to make pattern fabric. We do the same thing, in making imagery and printmaking.
Yes.
The idea of repetition in printmaking, repetition in pattern, the repetition of stitching, all of those things, there's this overlap that happens there. And it was just, I think it was just meant for me to be a part of that world.
And what I appreciate about what you've described is that we know that there is a relation between text and textile and the tactile. And so I wonder if you wouldn't mind elaborating a little bit on that relationship as we look at one of your pieces. Like there's so many beautiful ones to choose from. I mean, I really can't get any wrong, but I think this is my favorite. I really, can you walk us through, and y'all, if you are not on the Patreon, Too bad for y'all. Come get on the Patreon, because the Patreon gets to look at this amazing, gorgeous print. And Delita is going to walk us through what we are looking at. I just love this. So I don't know how you prefer to have your artwork approached. Do you like people to tell you what they see and then you say what you're, or like as an artist, what, I know there's no like right answers, of course, but how do you appreciate your work being addressed to you?
So I love for people to connect with the work. I can show you, and I have no problems with showing you what the work means to me, but it's just as important for me to hear your perspective, because I use floral fauna in the work, I use objects in the work, and all of these things I consider a universal language. So no matter what your ethnicity is, no matter what your financial status is, you have seen and related to these objects in some way, some shape, or fashion. So when you connect to that, you started the conversation. And when the conversation has been started, I have done what I was supposed to do as the artist. And so for me, getting people to engage with the work, that's when I know I've done what I was supposed to do.
Well, let me just describe for the audience what I am seeing, and then I would love to see for you to elaborate further, tell us the title and the goals. What I'm looking at is a gorgeous red background with a Black girl. She looks like a girl, someone who's not fully grown yet, but she looks like a young woman, laying on her side in this kind of restful, relaxing pose. Her head is rested on her forearm, and her other arm is just laying on her side. One leg is crossed over the other. And then there are these two figures that look almost like a batik fabric. Like the figures themselves are made of batik fabric. And there is an outline, a stitched outline around one of the figures who is kind of kneeling over and has their hand extended on the forehead of the young woman who is laying on the ground. And what I saw in this was care. I saw something ancestral. I saw this girl is kind of resting in the palms of people who may not be here on this plane, on our earthly plane, but are still present in our lives. So I look at this image and found it very affirming. It made me feel like, oh, my ancestors are checking for me. That was what I was seeing, but that is my connection to this beautiful piece. And it is one of the reasons this and the other pieces that you also have that incorporate stitching and textile making more explicitly, that the way that I can easily see it. And so I'm not saying it's not there in all the other pieces, but this is the one that I can easily see it. But that's what I see. I think it's just so rich and amazing. So tell us truly about the piece? Like what's the title? When did you make it? And what are some of your thoughts on hearing my interpretation and how they compare it with what your intent was as you created it? Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast. And do you want to stay in the loop with everything Black Women Stitch? Sure you do. So our weekly newsletter is where it's at. You'll get podcast updates, community news, behind the scenes peeks, and ways to support the work we're doing. Whether you're a longtime listener or just getting to know us, this is the easiest way to stay connected. So click the link and sign up today. Promise we will not flood your inbox, just your creative spirit. Thanks so much. See you soon. Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast. Our Patreon community is growing and we'd love to have you in it. We recently updated our membership tiers and now it's easier than ever to support the work of Black Women Stitch while getting exclusive perks just for you. You'll find full-length talks, behind the scenes updates, bonus episodes, and access to videos from the podcast and beyond. Your support helps fund the podcast, pay our team, and keep this movement going strong. Every dollar truly makes a difference. So if you've been thinking about joining, Now is the perfect time. Black organizations face increasing funding challenges. Community support closes that gap. Head to our Patreon community and choose the tier that feels right for you. And thank you.
I think you nailed it. So this piece was actually created during the pandemic. And it was such a difficult time for everyone because it's actually a self-portrait.
It's you.
It's me.
Yes. I was right. It's a young woman. I was right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the young, but yeah.
Hey, hush. We the same age, I think. So hush. Continue.
So it was a very difficult time for everyone, of course. And it was a time my mother had been involved in a car accident and eventually succumbed to COVID.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And for me, it was a time when I felt like I had lost my mirror. I could not see myself. I could not see where I was. I couldn't see how to navigate the space that I was in. And so I'm like, how do I grapple with this? And I did a series of self-portraits. And it was a healing moment. It was an affirming moment. And I feel like it connected me even more spiritually with my ancestors. And so that is who you see in this image is the shadow figure. And the shadow figure represents those people who are no longer on this plane, but are very much connected to us and communicate with us at all times, whether we acknowledge it or not. And so that's when you see the figure going in and out of those patterns, that's how we connect to that space. That's how we marry into what I refer to as the veilscape. And the veilscape is that space just between the spirit world and the waking world where we meet and commune in that space. And that's what you see. And so the red became very important for me because you see the signature blue that I have in the piece, which is very much spiritual for me. It's a spiritual color for me.
Yes.
But the red is life.
Yes.
The idea that you will be coming back to life. You know,
yes.
my ancestors, my grandmother, my mother, and all of them before are there to hold me, nurture me, and carry me.
It's really quite beautiful. And I'm looking at the figures and the way that they have the print that was created on it. It looks really organic. Can you talk about what elements you used to create these and why an organic presence felt important for this?
So organic, all of the shapes that I use in my work, if you look very closely, I very rarely use straight angles. Very much rounded, very much organic shapes because I believe in staying as close to nature as possible.
Nice.
And so I use a combination of many different things. The seed pod that you see that's opening, that's an actual wooden block.
Wow.
Whereas the stems, the flower, the floral stem that you see,
yes,
actually foam that's been cut into that shape. So when I was, when you go to school for something, if you're a printmaker, you make prints. If you're a painter, you paint. You draw. If you're a draftsman, you draw. And I did not want to be confined in that way. And so it took me a while to get into the studio and to give myself permission to be the artist that I was meant to be. And, to identify the way I wanted to identify and to create the work that I wanted to create. So, I identify as a printmaker, but I'll pull some painting in, I'll pull stitching in, I'll pull whatever needs to be there.
Yes.
Because it's about creating and sharing a message more so than anything.
Yes. And it seems as though, and I understand the disciplinary specifics that you are talking about, that, that they want to train you to do this thing and preserve this tradition. And, printmakers got to print, but they got to do it in this particular way. There's a lot of rigidity, surprisingly, around a variety of art forms. you know? And rather than using these to kind of categorize or describe, they become almost like, you know, mandatory things that you must do.
Right.
You
Correct.
know, and so they're not so much about opening up possibilities, but about foreclosing them.
All about, I firmly believe, and I tell students all the time, it is extremely important that you get in and you learn the history and you learn the rules so that you can break them. That's my thing. It's like, okay, I know how to do X, Y, Z, but how do I push those boundaries? And that's what, I'm about in my work, is pushing boundaries.
I would love to talk about this piece if you have capacity. Tell us about who we are seeing in this portrait.
This is a self-portrait of myself. The pattern that you see in the background are persimmons.
Ooh.
And I grew up with a persimmon tree in my backyard. And I used to climb the tree with my cousins, and we would eat the persimmons. We would sit in the tree and eat the persimmons. And
that sounds like a nice way to spend the summer.
It was pretty amazing. I mean, I think I had, I look back at my childhood, and we didn't have a lot of things, but we had magic, and that was it. That was all I needed as a kid, was this magic to fuel and nurture my imagination and my creativity. But I wanted to specifically use the persimmons because persimmons are considered the fruit of the gods.
Oh.
It's a symbol of that. If you look at, mythology, Greek mythology, it's considered a fruit of the gods. And the idea of presenting myself in that way and nurturing myself as this goddess that, I'm meant to be.
And so in this picture, it looks like, can you talk about this piece of material? Are you removing, I'm like, is she taking a jacket inside out? Like, what is the gesture? Because I love the contrast between the shadows, the black and white, but then you get this huge burst of fabric and stitching, and it's just so remarkable.
So I wanted to visually figure out how to distinguish being in the spiritual space and being in the waking world. And so you see the contour outline of the figure.
Yes.
And my arm is clasped behind my back.
Yes.
But I'm looking over my shoulder, the idea of never forgetting.
That's right.
I was like, how do I represent that? How do I show us being in two different spaces? So there are three figures that you'll see in my work. You will see the actual portrait of an individual.
Okay.
You will see a silhouette, which represents the spirit world. And then you will see a contour outline that may have details, and that represents the psychological self. So all of the elements and aspects of who we are. We're such a multi-layered people.
Yes. Yes.
And I want us to be seen in that way. I'm more than just an artist. I'm more than just a mom. I'm more than just, Texana's granddaughter.
Yes.
I'm all of it.
Yes. More. Yes, absolutely. And this brings me to a claim that you made, and it's a wonderful way for us to turn to talking about your discipline, the work that for you as a working artist, you have studio time. It starts at 5 a.m. If you don't feel like you're hitting, if you're not in your stride on a piece by noon, you're like, okay, that's it for the day. You talk about art. You describe art as a constant hustle.
Yes.
And what I heard in that is it reminded me very much of what Angela Davis has said, that freedom is a constant struggle. And can you talk about the connection between art as a constant hustle and freedom as a constant struggle, if you see those as connected?
Absolutely. There's absolutely overlap there. So from the aspect of it being a constant hustle, fortunately and unfortunately, we as artists, visuals, creatives in general, do not have a set path. We don't go to college, get a job, do the internship, then move to the next step. And then you don't have these stair steps to follow.
Right.
And that's unfortunate for us. But the beauty of who we are is that we can create and make our lives whatever we want it to be. So there's that beauty in that. And then speaking from the perspective of Angela Davis, there's a freedom in me being a Black woman coming into my own space, creating a space that I'm able to invite more people that look like me, look like us, into, and say, hey, create, be you, do what you do. So there's a freedom in that. It's like, people's like, well, how do you protest? My very existence is a protest.
Yes.
The idea that I am a full-time working artist that support my family in this way, I have defied the odds being a Black woman in a field that is white men are extremely successful in. So,
and the idea that somehow that is your expectation, that you have to protest. Like that is, I think that there is a way that Black thriving is.
What I learned, a friend of mine, she says to me all the time, and we laugh about it. She's like, everybody's not built for the streets.
That's very true.
It's like, there are ways to support others, if that's not your role.
Exactly.
My role, for me, I felt like was to be able to create a space.
Yes.
That other artists can come into, create an organization that can help support other artists in that way.
Yes.
And what happened was I was giving a talk at one of my shows, and a gentleman just totally threw me off. He asked me a question that I was not ready for. And he said, what do you want your legacy to be? And I was like, what? And so I'm like, I got to make something up on the spot. I can't say.
It's like legacy. Wait a minute. Am I not just, I'm 43 years old right now. Do I have to think about that yet? I mean, goodness, can I have a few more decades? Shoot. How many 40-year-olds are planning on their legacy, Lord? Like, is this the time?
It was nowhere near my mind. But what I realized was that, Dr. Biggers,
yes,
Elizabeth Catlett,
yep,
Doc Thrash, Romir Bearden, all of these artists that came before me, I look at their work. They are who I consider masters, old masters.
That's right.
I've studied their work, and a few of them I've met.
Wow.
And what it made me realize that I want to be for other artists what they have been for me on my path. The question became, how do I do that? How do I speak that language and make it my own? And so it became Black Box Press Foundation. And building something for myself and for my people.
And I love the foundation in the way that you support artists with exhibition grants, or I think it's an invite only process where it's like, hey, I've seen you and I've seen your work. I think you need to be visible, and here, let me help you. I think that's a beautiful way to build legacy and also to model what we need to get free and to stay free.
That was really, I wanted to see if I had someone, early on, maybe my path would have taken a different turn, not that I'm on a wonderful path now, but maybe it would have been quicker, easier, better. I don't know.
But you already had a good path. At least the path that you had was a path of seeing Black creative excellence as a possibility. No one was saying, as many people get told, that's not practical. Do it in your free time. Go study, fill in the blank. That will definitely make money. You did not have that. You had permission to invest in your own dreams.
Yes, absolutely.
You had you were made aware of your creative power and potential and responsibility from an early age. So, I mean, if your path has not, if it's been difficult for you, who never had a doubt that this was what she was meant to do, think about those folks who have been told the whole time that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And that is what you have done. You have reached in to help those folks.
The struggle is absolutely real. So I tell people all the time, please don't get confused. I have struggled as hard
Mm.
as else. And I just feel like it's my responsibility to make the path as easy as I can for others.
I want to talk about your practice, because one of the things I appreciate about it is that you're a super early riser, but your making extends to how you prepare for your workday. And so you have a series of teas
Yes,
that you have created that mirror your own process. Like, you get up in the morning and you're there. Well, you tell us about how the tea itself helps to fuel your creativity, and how this is another example of you sharing what you know by having these teas. Talk a little bit about that.
So I have always loved tea, and like everybody else, I'm sure in the world, I started off as a little kid getting off from school, and you remember the Lipton can, the powdered tea.
Oh no! Listen, my mama was not letting us have stuff like that.
At kindergarten, I thought I was making tea.
You sure were.
I was making tea.
I was a chef. Let me squeeze some Hershey syrup into a glass of milk. Somebody call Julia Child right now, because I am 5 years old, chefing it up, stirring it real fast. Yeah, exactly.
But so it was just like I love tea, and so it became part of my daily practice. So I'm in the studio between 5 and 6, and I'm an early riser. Started early on with my grandma. But I get in, I make a pot of tea, and I literally just spend the morning very quietly until the sun rises. And that's my morning. And it's a way for me to prepare myself, to open myself to be the vessel that I need to be to create the work that I create. So I tell people all the time, I don't come in with plans at all. I am not a planner. I'm not a note taker. I'm not that chick. So and I do it intentionally, because if I get in the studio space and you have all of these plans, I tend to want to stick with them, and I want to keep myself open enough to say that's not working. Let me figure out what does work. And so that's my plan. So my husband and I, we tease each other all the time, because our family motto is we deal in the impossible. It's important to make the impossible possible.
That's right.
So one day we're sitting and we're laughing and talking. I was like, we should make a tea brand. We should make our own tea. And it was just something we laughed about over the years. And then finally, we decided to take the leap of faith and make it happen. And so, and my thought process behind that was like, how do I bring art into my everyday life? Like every single, from the time I wake up, going to work, having dinner, all of these things, I want to be surrounded by beauty.
Yes.
And it became the teas. And I was like, okay, but how does that happen? So I've invited you to take part in the ritual with me.
Yes.
But what else does that mean in terms of the visual? And so what we've done is we've actually created canisters that feature my artwork. But importantly, it tells the story of how each blend was created and why.
Wow.
Very instrumental in talking with, the I forget what you call them, but
the tea sommelier.
Yes, the tea sommelier. And so we're very much involved in that. And these are inspired from events that happened in my childhood, travels, all of those things. And so the cans are collector's items that actually, I don't think I have one here. Yes. It comes with certificate of authenticity.
Wow.
2,500 canisters available.
Wow. So it's a limited run.
It's a limited edition, and each canister is signed and numbered by me.
Wow.
As well as a certificate. So you have a collector's item,
Yes.
You can't, it's something for everybody. So you can sit this on your desk, after you enjoyed the tea.
Yes.
Holder, candle holder, all of the things.
That is so true. You could totally pour a candle in that. You really could.
Absolutely. And you can enjoy the canister.
The canister is gorgeous. I mean, like, shoot, you know how we do. We be saving canisters without art on them. You give us a country crock container, that junk will be in the fridge for decades.
Absolutely. But it was just a way, that you can sit this on your desk or on your table and you can enjoy art and you can, enjoy all of those things. So I believe in bringing art into all aspects of your life.
And you have absolutely done that. It is so beautiful. Well, it is time for us to wrap up. And I'm going to ask you, it was like, this is the fastest interview I have ever had.
We're just getting started.
I know, right? So this just means that you have to come back. So you just got to come back. You're going to keep making amazing work. And I'm going to keep being in love with it. And I will say, oh, she got something new. Come tell us. But the slogan of the Stitch Please podcast is that we will help you get your stitch together. Mm-hmm. Delita Martin, printmaker, creative genius, tea guru. What advice do you have for us to help us get our stitch together?
That's a good one. I think one of the most important things that I have come to realize and that has been instrumental in my life is knowing the importance of your story. Your story is just a little seed in this big garden of beautiful people, things, places, but you're so important and you're so much a part of this structure. So don't downplay who you are. Be who you are in the boldest, loudest way possible. Scream it at the top of your lungs, at the universe. Scream who you are and be who you are.
Thank you. And on that note, Delita Martin, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait to come back.
You've been listening to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. We appreciate you joining us this week and every week for stories that center Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing. We invite you to join the Black Women Stitch Patreon community with giving levels beginning at $5 a month. Your contributions help us bring the Stitch Please podcast to you every week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support, and come back next week and we'll help you get your stitch together.